All right. Hello and welcome to today's NRPA webinar, How to Tell Our Park and Rec Story, Storytelling Through Video. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we turn the program over to our presenters, we have a few housekeeping items. Please join in the discussion with your colleagues during the presentation via the webinar chat box. If you have questions for our presenter, please enter them into the chat box at any time. Time is scheduled following the presentation for our speaker to address your questions. We also have a few questions for you that you can answer through the chat box. You can continue the discussion from this webinar on the NRPA Education Forum on NRPA Connect after the webinar concludes. Within 24 hours after this live event, the webinar recording will be available on NRPA Online Learning. You can check NRPA Online Learning frequently for new professional development offerings. Our next webinar, The Gender Unicorn, Tell Me More, will be held at 2 p.m. this Thursday, May 27th. It's my pleasure to welcome Court Jones to kick things off today. Court is the communications manager here at NRPA and host of Open Space Radio, NRPA's podcast. And I will now turn things over to him.
Thank you, Sharon. Happy Tuesday afternoon, everyone. My name is Court Jones. I'm NRPA's communications manager. I'm thrilled that so many of you are joining us today for this pre-Park and Rec Month webinar to learn about storytelling through video with Casey Stein. Casey is an incredible filmmaker who has directed projects for Nike, the New York Times, IBM, American Express, David Bowie, and more. And he's graciously agreed to join us today to share the basics of storytelling, tips for how to interview members of your community on camera, and best practices for capturing compelling video you can use to help amplify the stories that show the impact of parks and recreation in your community. Our hope is that you can take what you learned today and create a video for Park and Rec Month this July to share with your community. If you choose to create a video and share it on social media, be sure to tag NRPA and use the official Park and Rec Month hashtag, which is Our Park and Rec Story. We'll help amplify your community stories at the national level. Another exciting thing about today's webinar is the giveaway. Make sure you're paying attention to your email this week as well, because we'll be giving away 6 GoPro prize packs. So we'll be using a name generator to randomly select 6 people who are in attendance today to win those prize packs. And those will help you in creating videos for Park and Rec Month and beyond. So I will be emailing the 6 lucky individuals this week. So if you're one of them, make sure you respond to my email and confirm with your shipping information. So now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Casey Stein for this presentation.
Hello. How's it going, everyone? Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to kick this off. So, all right. Okay, thank you again, Court, for the intro, and thanks NRPA for being so gracious and having me here. This is very exciting. A little bit about me. I'm a filmmaker, which is kind of a fancy way to say that I help brands and nonprofits tell stories, specifically through video. Part of the nice thing about my job is that I really get to work with people in a variety of different capacities. But the thing that excites me the most is the storytelling aspect of it. Stories are obviously universal. They're something that we've learned and grown from a very early age. And I know I can speak for myself. I continue to seek out stories every day of my life. So I'm very lucky to do what I do. But I also want to emphasize, and I'll say this many times throughout this little spiel here, is that it's not rocket science. You too can totally do this. This is kind of how I approach every project that I'm given, whether it's a big commercial or a small video or something for a nonprofit or a music video or whatever it is. They always come back to a lot of the same principles. And so what I really want to do is share my experiences with you all, and hopefully you can take a few things away. And again, this is not rocket science. So yeah, we're gonna kick things off. All right, so I wanna go through just what I'm gonna cover today in abstract here. So we're gonna go through the basics of plot, followed by the basics of character, the basics of composition and lighting, Now that is going to cover interviews as well as landscapes, which are obviously pertinent for all of you all who work in parks and recreation. I'm sure you have very photogenic parks, even though you see them all the time. And I promise you that we'll cover how you can really photograph something well. And then we're going to learn how to ask a few interview questions. So yeah, that's kind of the rough agenda for today. I'll probably be deviating and telling some, weird stories along the way, but that's all right. So let's go through it. So whenever I'm presented any sort of thing, again, whether it's a big thing, whether it's a small thing, whatever it might be, I kind of have a sort of set of first steps. Sometimes I'm the one doing it. Sometimes it's an ad agency. Sometimes it's a client. In this particular situation, I'm going to pretend that it's really sort of from one centralized place. So when you're thinking about wanting to create a video, any kind of video, here's sort of the first steps that you want to follow. Identifying the problem. This seems really obvious, but it's amazing how frequently this step is kind of forgotten, right? And really what I'm asking here is, why are we making this video? What is the reason that we need to make it? If you don't answer this question for yourself and for your team or for the video as a whole, you really are not setting yourself up for a through trajectory, because by identifying the problem and really the reason to say, hey, why are we making this video? You're able to kind of think of every single sort of step along the way in a very logical process. So why are we making this video can range. It can range from because it's Mother's Day, or because we need to be more active on social media. Those are totally fine answers to this, but understanding the problem. Why are we making this video? I follow that up with identifying the goal. And what that really means is, what are we trying to communicate? And this one's a little more ambiguous, right? It can range from, we're trying to communicate an event that we have coming up, to something as kind of, not, I don't want to say subjective, but objective, as we need to, help our fundraising, or we're trying to help raise awareness about one particular issue. So really, what are we trying to communicate? Then I follow that up with identifying the tone. This is really my job as a director and as a filmmaker. This is really my job, is really understanding the tone of what we're trying to create. And we'll go into this a little bit later, but really what that means is, how are we going to tell it? How are we going to communicate this message? What is the way that we're choosing to portray our subjects, the way that we're choosing to portray our park, or sort of anything in between the two? And then finally, we're going to identify the characters. So who can help us tell the story? That can range from park employees to patrons to members of the community, but obviously you need people to help you tell this story. These people can be on camera, they can be off camera. There's a whole kind of world that is that. But really the more important thing are these 4 steps really set you up to thinking about this video in a concrete way, because I joke with my clients all the time that what I do is really subjective, and it's not science. It can be a little bit scientific, but it's not, right? It's not, there's no hardcore data. And because of that, it's so superfluous and so subjective that it's really good to identify steps and say, what are we trying to make? How are we going to make it? Who can help us tell it? What are the problems we're trying to solve? These very concrete steps. And by answering that for yourself, what you can really do is set yourself up for success down the road. So the kind of core things here, the reason that I'm telling you them are because every piece of content has to do this. And that kind of goes into my next question here. And so this is a question for all of you, and Court is going to assist here and kind of field through some questions. But I have a question for everyone, and I want you all to use the chat box to answer this. So the question is, what makes a good story? There's no right and wrong answer, just what makes a good story. And Court will select 1 or 2 that sound good to him. And you could take a second, obviously.
All right, Casey, I'm already seeing a lot of common themes in these answers, and two that are really popping out to me are emotion and characters.
All right. I dig that. Those are very interesting answers, because emotions inherently and characters all share one thing in common, which would be, whoops, come back. Oh no. Well, there it is. Conflict. Conflict is ultimately what pushes the story forward. So yes, characters create a good story, but more importantly, conflict is actually what pushes the story forward. So let's kind of break conflict down a little bit. Oh no, my presentation is totally messing up. We're going to try this again. Let's go. Oh, there it is. Okay. So everything has a conflict. Everything has conflict. And let me know if any of these sound familiar to any of you all. I just picked out a few that could apply to park employees. Not enough money, not enough attention, not enough time, weather, natural disasters. Any of these things sound familiar to any of you all? I would imagine they do to some extent. The reason that conflict works in a story, most importantly, is because if you don't have a conflict, there's really no reason to watch something. Because I think inherently as people, we want to solve problems, and we also understand the world through problems and decisions as a result of those problems. So let's take a look at the Wizard of Oz, right? This one of the central conflicts of the Wizard of Oz is Dorothy is trying to go home. So Dorothy becomes an interesting character because she has a central conflict to her. She's trying to go do something, and the emotions that she elicits because of the fact that she's not home makes her an interesting character. So, Court, some of the questions that you pulled out of it, rather the answers that you pulled out, they're right, but they lead to this bigger idea of conflict. So your job, kind of more importantly, is to really sort of figure out the conflict and understand how that can help your story in whatever it is that we're doing here. So how you choose to portray the conflict, though, is the tone. And I'll kind of break down what that means a little bit here. So tone is a very subjective thing. Tones can be celebratory. They can be somber. They can be appreciative. They can be honest. They can be heartfelt, or excuse me, uplifting or heartfelt. What's nice about video as a medium, I don't want to say more than other things, but it certainly is a hallmark of it, is it can be all of these things. It's hard to be all of them at one time, but you can be one of them, right? We've all seen a video that's celebratory. We've seen something that's uplifting. We've seen something that's appreciative. And by no means is this the end. This list could go on for thousands and thousands and thousands of words. But this is really crucial. This is really your job more than anything else, is once you've identified the problem, is trying to figure out the tone. How are we going to address this problem in the form of a video? And I cannot tell you how important this is, and how identifying this early on changes how you approach everything. And this is true whether you are the ones who are actually creating it, or if you are hiring someone to do it, someone like myself, let's say, or a production company, or whomever, or a videographer. Identifying the type of tone that you want to, that you really want portrayed is crucial. So question number 2, shoot, I forgot a slide. So your goal is to figure out the conflict of the story you're trying to tell, right? So that's kind of taking it back a step. So question number 2, again, using the chat function here. What makes a great character? And Court is obviously gonna do his thing again.
All right, Casey, we're getting a lot of the same answer, a lot of good answers, but a lot of relatable as an answer. So
Relatable.
that one, yes.
I dig it. I dig it. Y'all are a sympathetic bunch, which I appreciate. Because relatable, in my opinion, really means flaws. Because we all have flaws, right? That's the nature of being human, and connecting to the human existence as people, as a storyteller, or as anything in between the two. Well, I guess I'm a person, but I'm also a storyteller, is flaws. Understanding that we are not perfect. So everybody has a story to tell because of that. Your values and your opinions, your family and your friends, how you choose to spend your time, why you work where you do. This is really looking obviously at people that surround themselves and work for parks, patrons of parks, members of the community. The really amazing thing about thinking about it like this, in terms of knowing that everyone has a story to tell and trying to find the sense of a flaw to make it relatable, is powerful, because then what you really create is a human story. So I want to clarify one thing though. When I do say a flaw, I think it's easy in the context of society to think that a flaw is a bad thing. That's not true in stories, and that's definitely not true in film. You want a character with a flaw because that makes them relatable, because we all have flaws, like I said. And so it's not a bad thing, right? A great example that kind of popped in my head, or someone had said to me the other day, because I was talking to a friend, they had mentioned that they were someone who grew up in New York City, and they were not around a lot of green space. And they moved to rural America, and they were suddenly around farms and mountains and just more space. And to them, that, to me at least, that makes them an interesting character. That on paper qualifies as a flaw, but it's not a flaw by any stretch of the imagination, but at least it gives them a story to tell. So your goal then, as storytellers now, your goal is to get to the heart and understand your character. So, Court, you had mentioned the relatability aspect of it. What's nice about that is that when you get to the heart of whatever your character has, they become relatable, and therefore we can show their flaws. So let's recap. And I'm aware I'm moving quick here, folks, but I promise this will make sense by the end of it. All of this is a story. So conflict, characters. Good short stories, like the ones that you'll be telling, have two main things: characters, the subjects that you're interviewing, and conflict, what is pushing the story forward. So if we go back to some of the examples that we already had said before, things like maybe it's not having enough attention on your park, and interviewing someone who works for the park, or someone who is a patron of the park, or longstanding community member, who is trying to draw attention to it. That's a great character who has an interesting background, has a great story to tell, and more importantly, they're going to push this story forward because they're presenting the conflict at hand. People need to pay more attention to us. They need to give us more funding. We want more people inside of our parks, or whatever. These are all things that are really up to you all, and whatever the challenges that you're facing. But more importantly, identifying these things can really, really help you out. So your job as storytellers is to find what makes someone compelling and frame that inside of a place with conflict. Now, this is a little bit different than what I just said a second ago. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the difference between understanding a story and understanding a conflict or a compelling character, that's the difference between being a filmmaker and not being a filmmaker. And all of you can be filmmakers. And it's so important to understand that, because what I do is not rocket science. It really isn't. It's just trying to frame those things and bring them to the forefront. Again, The Wizard of Oz is a great example. So keep in mind, if you want one kind of core takeaway to take away from everything, it's this. And it's that your job as storytellers is to find what makes someone compelling and frame that inside of a place with conflict. Trust me, you can do that a million ways to Sunday inside of your own worlds if you just take a step back. If you look at people and you look at the scene and you look at the situation and say, what's the conflict here? What makes this person compelling? And how can I marry those two things? That's gold. People will watch that all day long. That's the basis of entertainment. That's the basis of storytelling. So, all right, moving on. We're pushing through here. So, third question for everyone: what makes a great painting or a great photo? And this To be clear, is kind of on a technical level. What do you think really makes a good kind of photo or painting?
Casey, I think you're going to like all of these as well. We're seeing lighting, framing, composition, balance, focus, a lot of great answers that I think you will appreciate.
Amazing. We're just going to skip over this entire slide because you all are Gregory Crutzen and I am, or you're Ansel Adams, I should say, and I am so proud. Those are correct. Composition and lighting is all it really comes down to. So let's take a look at this, for example. This is a photo of the Dawn Wall in Yosemite. I saw a few people in the chat saying they're from California. So hopefully this photo resonates, or for anybody who has been to this magnificent park before. This is an exceptional photo. The reason this photo is really good is for a number of different reasons. But if you look at the composition of it, more importantly, you could really analyze what makes it so nice. So the first one, it's kind of an old school term. Some people think it's a little dated. I kind of disagree. I think it still has a lot of legs and I think it's really important. And that's the rule of thirds. If you look at this photo vertically and horizontally, just based on the vertical aspect of it, a third of the frame, you have the beautiful Dawn Wall in the background. The other third of the frame, you have these big tall trees here. And then if you divide it horizontally, you have the sun setting over there. You have the grass moving down below. It's stunning. I want to be here. And it really, what it can do, the sort of rule of thirds, is it divides up your frame into thinking about it almost like a game. And if you think, and when I say rule of thirds, imagine a tic-tac-toe board that you can put on top of this. And what's nice about that is that it kind of gives you a way to think about something and how to frame something. And more importantly, in the sort of world of video, is you can have movement within the frame. So this is a still photo, so it's not the best example in the world, but for what it's worth, let's pretend that the wind is blowing, or maybe there's a bird flying in the background. That gives it life. That takes it from kind of, I don't want to say boring, but it can get a little bit static at a certain point to having life and energy to it. And any way that you can show that, that's really the power of what a moving image can do. Because what separates what I do from what a photographer does is that I chase movement. I chase light and I chase composition and I chase movement more than anything else. So, if you can imagine even people walking in the background along the grass here, or someone hiking up to the top, or rock climbing up to the top, I should say, which would probably be a very different shoot than what any of us are going to create. But hypothetically speaking, search for those kind of things, because as humans, we're really attracted to movement. We really, if you actually kind of look in your everyday, imagine driving your car, you'll see things moving past you constantly, and your eyes will dart to them every single time a pedestrian or a dog or another car or whatever. Or if you're sitting at a park, just sitting down, looking still, if you track what your eyes are doing, they're always going to go to something that's moving, a bird, a person, or whatever. So look for those things in what you're trying to create too. And you can exemplify that by creating camera movement. And so what camera movement means is taking this exact same frame and physically moving the camera itself in order to create a little more emotion in there. So in this scene, you could push it forward a little bit, so just moving the camera gently each direction, or maybe from the side to side, or even up and down. That can create a little bit of energy to it and kind of keep things engaging. Nature in particular really likes to be sort of photographed in that way. And it can be really powerful. Now, this does require having a few tools, things like a tripod or a steady hand can really help you out here. But it's a nice thing to keep in mind is that, the amount of times I've seen something that was interesting, but lacked a little bit of movement, I could go on for days. And I think it's just a really nice way to keep things going. And the other one, which is more fun, which we talked about, is lighting. So this frame, or sort of what you're seeing in the background here, this is the exact same photo taken at 4 different times of day. And sort of in descending order, in the top left here, we have about noonday sun. And then in the top right, we have kind of like a twilighty dusk thing. And then in the bottom left, we have sunrise. And in the bottom, the bottom right, we have sort of a cloudy, maybe it's the middle of the day thing. For me, without question, top right and bottom left are the best ones because they have more light. Look at, and sort of more character to them, right? The one up here that's in the top left here, the one that's noonday sun, it's kind of harsh and it's not that interesting and it's a little bit sort of bland. And I think the same is true of this bottom one here that has a cloudy sky. It's not that interesting. You know, yeah, you can see some detail, but you see the same amount of detail in the top right one with more color, more interest. You know, it's a little bit, it's a little moodier, which is really nice. And it's kind of like, I think we all sort of dream about hiking a mountain at dusk and seeing the sunset over it, or if this is the bottom left, seeing it at sunrise. I mean, that's a dream, right? And so that really makes something go from okay to really great, in my opinion. And if I were to choose, if I were the one shooting this, no question, it's the bottom left. That's a stunning photo. The sunlight hitting the side of the mountains, the beautiful color that's going on there, the clouds that are also peppered by the same light, the little bit of fog happening. I mean, it's ridiculous. But what's cool about this is that this is the same angle. All this photographer did was choose their sort of timing accordingly. So target early morning or sunset. Avoid the harsh sun. This is the best thing you could ever do for yourself. If you're trying to photograph your park, this is true of a film, this is true of photographs, it's true of anything. If this is something that you're trying to do, just target the morning or the evening. Your park will look so good during that time frame. And I promise you, it just will never look as good at noon or 2 p.m. on a bright sunny day. And especially for you California folks, you know what I'm talking about. It's just harsh and it's right over top of you. And it doesn't look good. And so, you know, that is pretty true too of any time that you're interviewing someone. So what's a really nice kind of rule of thumb is to try to find situations where people can be lit head on. So what I have here is I have a window right behind my computer, and I live in New York City, and it's actually a really nice sunny day here. And so I have a lot of light coming in, and you can see it. It just rims my face here. It fills in the background nicely. And it also, you know, it's not too sidey. It's never over here. And more importantly, it's not back here. This is something I think everyone's kind of gotten used to in sort of the pandemic, for lack of a better term. We've all been on a Zoom call where you're looking around going, who is that? I can't see you at all because they've got all the windows closed or they've got some bright light behind them and you can't see anything. Do yourself a favor. Bring the light around, either put it right in front, right to the side. Those things can really, really help you out a ton. And that's, by the way, true if you're trying to up your Zoom game a little bit. Hot suggestion for you. And so our final question here, this is our last one, is, oh, sorry, forgot the thing. So film your park at opportune times. We already went over this. So question number 4 here is, can you link all of these together and create a compelling video? I know I just breezed through this, but I'm asking a bit of a trick question here. Hopefully, Court, you'll pull out what I hope is only one answer.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of yeses and absolutelys. There's 100% in there. A lot of exclamation points. So.
Bonus points for you who put 100% in there. Whoever put 100% in there, but bonus points for you because yes, 100%. You totally can do this. Again, this is not rocket science. This is one of the beautiful things about filmmaking, about art, about anything kind of closely related to it, is that it's really subjective. There's no right and wrong. There's definitely different levels of quality, but there's no right and wrong. And more oftentimes than not, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is following some of the core principles, finding a conflict, finding a character that has a lot of heart to them, you know, letting them kind of have their opportunity to go through really why they're presenting or what they're doing or what their background is, and framing that and telling those things. And so my biggest piece of advice, or sort of in ways that you're going to approach these things, is don't let either a lack of experience, a lack of funding, or a lack of gear take you away from wanting to tell these stories. Your cell phone is a really powerful tool, because what's more important is hearing someone's story and understanding a conflict. People resonate with that. I joke all the time that, I can make this big fancy commercial and I can send it to my mom and she'll care less, but instead she'll send me like some heart-throbbing video that someone shot on their phone and she's like over the moon about it. I'm like, of course, like we just spent a ton of money over here and a ton of energy, and it's that thing that you like because it works and it makes sense. And so the same is true of anybody trying to create any kind of video. So let's talk a little bit, kind of transitioning here, about interviewing people. There are sort of these classic journalism questions. And the reason I'm bringing this up more specifically is because, sometimes you really need a narrator. You need someone who's taking you through this. Sometimes this could be an interview. This could be voiceover. But journalism kind of centuries ago, honestly, came up with a few really important things that you can remember. And they're called the 5 W's. The 5 W's are who, what, where, when, and why. Some of this might be familiar to you all already. This is kind of like I remember learning about this in like middle school or something along those lines when I was a kid, because they work. They work really well. They're really nice ways to really think about how to communicate a message, and more importantly, draw answers out of someone. Because one of the hard things about interviewing someone is that it's so easy to, and this is an on-camera interview for the record, but you could use it for a job interview if that's what you all do as well. One of the hard things to do is sort of find the next question, or how do you get the answer that you're looking for from someone. These 5 questions work incredibly well. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I use this. It's ridiculous, honestly. I was in an interview a couple weeks ago where I was interviewing someone who ran a company, and I realized I was asking a lot of kind of where and when questions, very like sort of surface, kind of boring, like, things that you needed to ask, but really weren't that interesting at the end of the day if you weren't in the industry that they were in. And I switched to a why question. I said, well, why did you do this? Why did you choose to start this company? Why did you choose to, kind of transition to those types of questions? The interview completely changed because I got to the heart of why this person was doing that thing. And I think that that's what people care about, at least me as a viewer. So, go kind of default to this. So I want to kind of take that in abstract, or away from being abstract, and make that a little more concrete. So what I want to do is a mock interview. So I want to set some sort of ground rules here, and understanding kind of what it is. So this is going to be a fictionalized interview. Obviously, it's a mock interview. But I want to kind of set the stakes in terms of what are we trying to accomplish, right? So let's pretend, for the sake of it, that it's Earth Day and we are hosting an event with a wide variety of activities. We're going to have a composting lesson, a tree planting activity, a barbecue for the community, and an arts and crafts project for kids. This, again, this is just an example, but let's just take this as kind of our background. So maybe let's say this is like in March. We're all talking and someone says, we should make a video for Earth Day. We're going to have a big Earth Day event. We should really sort of try to do something here. So let's go back to our initial questions when we started kicking it off. What is the goal? What are we trying to communicate? We're trying to communicate that we have a big event happening for Earth Day and we want you to come join us. Identifying the tone. How are we going to tell it? Through an uplifting video meant to celebrate our park. Now, this is a decision that hopefully you can make as a team or solo, if that's your situation. The tone here, for me at least, is really important to nail down because it's easy to take what is the sort of ethos of this video, a big event happening for Earth Day and we want people to come join us, and make something that is not uplifting. So really think about that. Make sure that that's something that you identify and say, okay, we have to make this uplifting, because that will, again, that's going to inform the music that you choose, and that's going to inform how you talk to someone and how you choose to shoot your park and anything in between. It's always going to constantly go back to that. We're going to identify the problem. why are we making this video? And just for the sake of it, let's go for a pertinent one that you all can probably relate to. It's 2021 and people are still a little shy about socializing. The pandemic is real. A lot of people obviously had tough goes of it and were sort of shut in and weren't out a lot. But in sort of a new year, we want people to get out and experience the great outdoors. And it's something that we can all feel safe about. And so we want people to feel safe, to feel like we're taking precautions to make sure that we're making them and their loved ones cared for and safe. And people are also a little shy about socializing. So we're kind of keeping that in the back of our mind because we have to. And then we're going to identify the characters. And so we're asking who can help us tell that. In this particular situation, it's going to be Court Jones. So we're going to do a mock interview. So Court, if you're ready, we're gonna kick this off. So what I want everyone to kind of look at from this is I'm going to put the questions up and I'm going to ask Court verbatim what's on there. But as he starts giving me answers, I might shift a little bit depending on the kind of answers that he gives and sort of using them in a way that can be advantageous for what we're trying to create, which, as we laid down here, is this uplifting video meant to sort of celebrate our park. So I'm going to keep them up here. Court, you're gonna gently push that away so that way you don't spoil any questions for us. And yeah, we're gonna kick it off. So Court, let me know when you're ready to go.
I'm ready.
Let's do it. All right, folks, here are the questions and let's see how this goes. All right, Court. So who are you?
My name is Court Jones. I live in Northern Virginia. I work for a wonderful organization called NRPA. So we work with parks and recreation across the country. I am a lover of the outdoors. I'm a pet owner, and I just really enjoy being able to help others tell their stories.
Court, I love it. That was great. Thank you for saying all those things. I realized I actually forgot to say at the very beginning of this, one thing to keep in mind, keep your answers coming from the heart. And more importantly, repeat the question inside of your answers. So if I say, what is your favorite color? You could say, my favorite color is blue. Just try to make it a complete sentence. You did it on that last one, which was great. Thank you for doing that. That was my bad for not mentioning it. So we'll keep moving, but you're killing it so far. You sort of already dived into this, but what do you do? And if you could kind of explain that a little bit, you did a bit a second ago, but kind of take that a little further. What is it that you do?
So in my role at NRPA, my title is communications manager. I do a lot of different things. I host our podcast. I work with contributors to our blog, and I also just really get the word out to the public about the great work that park and recreation professionals are doing across the country.
When did you get involved?
A little over 4 years ago.
And kind of what made you want to get involved? What is it that really attracted you to NRPA? And yeah, what really attracted you to the job?
So my background is in journalism, which, leads to my love of storytelling. And so between my love of journalism and writing and storytelling and my love of the outdoors, when I saw a position open up with NRPA to work on the magazine, I felt like it was probably the perfect opportunity and something that I would really be able to thrive in and something that I would be passionate about. And so that's really what made me want to get involved. And then there's a lot of things that have made me want to continue on into the future.
Right on. Sounds like you're a happy dude doing what you're doing right now. So that kind of spurs the next sort of phase of this, which is really, why do you continue to stay involved then? What's really keeping you here? What motivates you every day? What makes you eager to get up in the morning and head to work?
It's the people, without a doubt. When I started with NRPA, I didn't really know everything that went on in parks and recreation. And, over the years, I've found that it's way more than just, what people might think of when they think of parks and recreation. It's more than just, sports leagues and things like that. There's so much amazing work that goes on in this industry. And that's what gets me up every morning and helps me go to work and be able to support the great work that's going on all across the country.
can you kind of give us, and I'm not putting you on the spot here, there's no right and wrong answer. Can you sort of give us some background as to, or not, maybe not background, can you kind of give us an example of the work that you do and how that's really affected you and what sort of kind of promotes you and moves you forward, i.e. like make that a little more concrete. Like what are some times that in your recent memory where you really felt like, yeah, this is good. I'm really glad that we're doing this. I'm glad that I'm a part of this.
I mean, I think specifically over this past year, it's been an extremely challenging year for so many people, and Parks and Recreation was not immune to a lot of the challenges that happened, especially with, budget cuts and having to reduce staff and things like that. But seeing the resilience of those people continue to support their communities and pivot to do really whatever was needed in their community is just has inspired me. And I have conversations with people, and if I'm talking about what I do and they're like, oh, parks, that saved me during the pandemic, and I get to be like, well, me too. Do you know what the people that are providing these spaces for you have been doing during this? Like, it's not just this space that shows up. There are people that are working tirelessly every single day to make sure that space is available for you. And to be able to kind of open people's minds up to that behind the scenes work that's going on, I love that.
Right on. Where should you or other people spend your Earth Day?
I mean, obviously your local park. It's the best place. If you're able to access your local park, then I would say that's the place that you should spend Earth Day. That's what it's about, right? It's going to your local green space and seeing how you might be able to find local solutions to climate change and things like that. And a lot of local parks and rec departments are doing really good work on that front. And so familiarizing yourself with that space and maybe even meeting some of the staff and seeing what they're doing for Earth Day, and how you can get involved.
Love that answer, by the way. So that's kind of you sort of already said it, but just to sort of tap into this next one here. Why are parks so special? Take this any way you want to, but just why are parks so special?
Parks are so special, I think, because they are just this gathering space. They're a place where people know they can go. It's a place that, in my work, I found that it's a place where some people, it's literally the only place where they can find any sort of peace. They may have something going on in their life where there's nowhere else they can go besides their local park. And I think that, especially over this past year, people have developed this newfound love for their local parks and green spaces because, the physical benefits of being able to get outside and exercise and just the mental health benefits. I mean, for me, especially over this past year, I've been working a lot, and if I don't go out, after work or halfway through the day to the park that's in my neighborhood and, walk the trails, I'm a totally different person, at the end of the day. And, my partner can tell, my coworkers can tell, everyone can tell. And so that's why they're so special to me.
The dog can tell, I'm sure.
The dog can absolutely tell.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, I have a few more questions here, but I kind of think I want to summarize some of them because, I sort of have a few without giving you too much information. I kind of have a lot of what and who questions here, but I want to go right to the end because I think a lot of the answers you've been given, and this is kind of to put a pause on this for a hot second here. Everything you've been saying, I've been counting. I'm at 12 different lines that you've said that I can be like, yep, use that in that video, use this in that video. Like there's a ton of little bits in there, but I really want to end it with this one. Why should people experience a park on Earth Day?
It's a really good question. I think people should experience a park on Earth Day because if you're celebrating Earth Day, you're celebrating the natural environment. You're celebrating ways that you can take action and, find solutions to climate change. You're looking at ways that you can make sure that your community is more, resilient when it comes to climate and disasters and things like that. And so if you're celebrating all those things and you're thinking about all those things, go to a place where all those things are taking place. Go to a place where There are people that are working on solutions. There are people working on making the community more resilient. And so if you immerse yourself in that space and are around the people that are making it happen and other people that are passionate about Earth Day, because a lot of people are going to go to their local park if they're passionate about Earth Day. And if you're surrounding yourself with those same passionate people, it makes for potentially a greater impact on whatever action you're trying to take.
That was amazing. That was the best answer I could ever ask for. That was incredible. Literally, I thought all the other answers were good. That was the best one. Take that entire thing, chop it up a little bit, get rid of some ums if we need to. There's our video. Done. I'd watch that video on a social media page, or if it were advertised to me online or wherever, and go, yeah, I got to check this out. Let's go to that place. And so that's the power of what a compelling character can do. So thank you so much for taking the time, Cord. And I think,
thank you.
Yeah, that's it for me, folks. Yeah, this is fun. I think, Court, you're going to sort of take over with some housekeeping stuff. But if I can leave anybody with this, it's that go forth and prosper. You guys are going to kill it. And I believe in what you're doing. So thank you all so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Casey. And thanks to everyone in attendance. And I'll hand it back over to Sharon now for the Q&A.
Great. All right. If anyone has any questions for Casey or for Court, go ahead and stick those into our chat. We will be fielding them to Casey to answer, and make sure that you change how you send your messages in the chat to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see your questions. I will now turn things back over to Court. Court, if you just want to pick out some questions from the chat and pitch them to Casey, that'll be a good way to get started. It looks like we have a lot of questions though. So we will probably try and continue this discussion on NRPA Connect after the webinar concludes so that everyone can stay connected.
Thanks, Sharon. Casey, the first question, and this is a good question for me to hear the answer to because I'm usually on the other side of the interview. Are there any tips for keeping interviewees calm and engaged?
Yes, totally. Honestly, the easiest one is be friendly. Be a person. I have been very lucky to interview celebrities and world leaders and all kinds of crazy people. And I'm just a guy. I'm a dude who lives in Brooklyn. And I would like to think very normal. And I think that we're all people at the end of the day. So it's so easy to get freaked out in front of a camera and to be nervous. But at the end of the day, you have no reason to be. If you go to someone, if you make them feel like they're being listened to, because you are listening to them, if you make them feel welcomed, and if you create a safe space to say, hey, there's no pressure here. We can totally edit. We can cut things. If you feel like you didn't like what you said, we can start again. Doesn't matter. Thankfully, we are past the days of shooting on actual film where it really mattered. And, sort of time was money. It's digital. Shoot all day long. Doesn't matter. So long as people know that. And I think it's good to get to know your subjects too. Before you roll a camera, say hi, introduce yourself, get to know them a little bit better. How's your day? Those kind of things. It's worth a lot.
Love that answer. Kindness goes a long way.
Sure does.
Do you recommend providing a script?
So that's a really interesting question. It depends what you're trying to do. There's many times where you need someone to say a specific thing. Maybe it's like a call to action, or it's kind of nitty gritty technical. Kind of like if we were to go back to our Earth Day video, I may provide you with a script at the end to say, hey, on Earth Day, we are going to have X, Y, and Z thing at from X, Y, and Z time, kind of like very sort of the nitty gritty nuts and bolts side of it. Sometimes that's good because it's sort of too much pressure on you to try to remember all of that and then have the camera rolling and be like, okay, go say exactly what you need to. That's kind of a lot of pressure. Sometimes people ask for questions beforehand. It's up to you. I personally tend to not do it as much, but that's not nor right nor wrong. It's just sort of a personal preference. So it really depends on the situation. But I personally tend to think that if you can avoid it, you're a little better off.
Great. Seen this question a couple times. What's the optimal length of a video for social media posts?
Great question. That is a huge ranging one. So I am not a media buyer, which means that they tell me what length it needs to be more often than not. It ranges. If you're paying for promotional stuff, for example, that changes the sort of scale. 15 seconds costs less than 2 minutes or whatever. But in general, shorter the better. In sort of the world of the infinite scroll and just constant engagement, you're a little better off keeping it short. I tend to think that anything that goes past 2 minutes has to have a really good reason to go past 2 minutes. You probably got your message out in the first 30 seconds of it, and that's what's important. So to piggyback that answer, the best thing you can do for yourself, if you're going to make something that's longer, is make the beginning as engaging as you possibly can, because we're all guilty of seeing something and being like, nope, too long, don't care, or you watch 10 seconds and you go boring, next, and you do it subconsciously. So the more that you can do to kind of get people in, the better.
Great. This is a really good one. Thinking of conflict, I'm not sure how to share our lack of time, money, etc., without offending political figures. So is there a way to maybe portray that in a way that doesn't seem like necessarily an attack on the people with the budget?
Yeah, totally. So let's say like it's the hypothetical example of not having enough money. Let's just go with that just for the sake of it. If it were me and I were presented with this problem, the thing that I would do is make that a given, right? There's sort of a thing that in my industry called show, not tell. So I would try to show that. I would sort of show that it's clear things are not quite as great as it could be, or more importantly, here's how much people love it. Here's how much, the sort of, to put it nicely, the people kind of controlling the Excel spreadsheets of, various cities and organizations. I think that they tend to think about things as saying like, well, there's a lot of people over there. It's clearly very successful. So the more that you can show that to me implies that, hey, it really works. They probably need a little more love. So that's how I would approach it is if I were to do anything, I would really gently hint at it, but I really would show how successful it is for the community, but maybe how the park isn't kind of keeping up with that. But that's a tough one. That's a really hard one. I totally agree.
Yeah, I agree. What is an easy video editing program that can be used by a novice?
Ooh, another great question. So it's kind of dealer's choice, to be totally honest with you. Everyone kind of has their different preferences. If you have a Mac, iMovie is wonderful. It's a really robust program that that kind of sets the framework for those sort of more expensive professional options. There's a few ones out there. There's a few apps for what it's worth that you can actually use. I use Adobe Premiere. That's kind of like the industry standard, but it is a little expensive. It's a pretty expensive monthly membership that I have to pay for. And I think Windows still has Windows Movie Maker. Don't quote me on that one. Or the other one that's a little harder to use is called Davinci Resolve. It's actually free. It is an industry standard one that people use all the time for different situations. It's a little harder to use though. So do some research. I bet that the internet has a bunch of really good answers for it. I see someone saying it does have Windows Movie Maker. Thank you for that, Samantha. I see that.
And I can vouch for Premiere as well. I have used Premiere Rush, which is kind of like Premiere Pro Lite.
Right.
It's very
Premiere
basic,
Rush.
and I've used that, and it's been pretty easy to navigate. So I would recommend that one as well.
That's right. I totally forgot about Premiere Rush. Take everything I said and forget about it. Premiere Rush is awesome. Adobe has figured it out. They're dead. I bow to the Adobe gods. I have every app on my computer for them because they're the best.
This is a good one. Do you have to get permission from the interviewee and the park, or have them sign anything?
So this is a bigger thing. I'm gonna preference this with saying I am not a lawyer, and I want to take whatever I say here with that asterisk, please. In general, it is best practice to get people's permission. Typically, people are fine with it if you if they understand the context of how it's being used. However, if you are doing any sort of paid promotional work, you can face pretty bad legal action if you don't get that person's signature. And that's true of the park as well. It is also just sort of generally considered best practice to do that. Locations, people, it's important. It's just good to know, kind of keep the chain of communication clear. Hey, here's what we're going to be using it for. Here's the intention. Here's the time that we're going to be here. Those kind of things. I'm sort of in favor of always doing that. And where I live in New York City, and that's a thing that I have to deal with constantly. So yeah, it's a good practice to be in. And you can find contracts and whatnot online very easily. It's not rocket science.
Great. All right, I think we have time for a couple more. Thinking of budgets, if a department was going to invest in one piece of equipment, what would you recommend?
It's tough. It's a really tough answer. So part of the problem within my industry is that the technology changes constantly. Cameras that are 10 years old are pretty out of date at this point. I would argue that a camera can set you up well. There's a lot of cheap options out there in the DSLR world that can do a lot for a couple $1,000. The industry standard stuff is add a couple zeros to that in terms of how much those things cost, and I don't recommend anything like that. So a camera is a good thing, knowing that it has a shelf life. It's still a piece of electronics. A computer is also a really good one, an important one that's easy to overlook. Video footage is really hard on computers, and you really can't use anything. When I see editors' computers that I work with, it's like a thing. It's like it's a machine. It makes a lot of noise and a lot of fans going off, and there's a reason for that. And so those things can be really important. A mic is also a really important one that's like so easy to overlook. Having bad quality audio is awful. I am using a microphone right here. This thing cost me a whopping $100, and it is wonderful. It's been great, and it plugs into my computer via USB. Those kind of things are really good. Oh, actually, there's one more. Hard drives. Whatever you do, that is a really important one. Please, 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 please back up your stuff. I have had that happen. Buy hard drives. You will never regret doing that. Hard drives.
That is a very good point. And then I think for our final one, thinking about music, is there a site that you recommend? Because, a lot of times if you post a video and it's got copyrighted music, it will be taken down. So do you have any suggestions for where people might be able to download, royalty-free music that they can use?
Yeah, totally. So Creative Commons is a really, really powerful, really interesting incentive that the US government put on a while ago now. There's a lot of different ways you can search it. You can search the Creative Commons database, but that also can kind of link you to other websites like SoundCloud. Even Spotify can do a little bit of it. So you can kind of search through that and find free music that way. It tends to be not the best at times. You really gotta shuffle through a lot of it. You get a lot of weird stuff sometimes, and more importantly, and YouTube too. More importantly, it can be hard to kind of filter. I use a website called Artlist, which is $200 a year, which sounds expensive, but they have a library of like 100,000 plus songs. Don't quote me on that, but it's like something in that range, and it is awesome. I'm able to filter by sounds and whatnot, and there's a number of other subscription services out there that can be worth it if you have a serious amount of volume that can come out. If you're going to be doing a lot of videos, or you're working with people like me all the time, it's a really easy thing to invest in. But yeah, or you can search Creative Commons, YouTube, those kind of places.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Casey. I think we are out of time, and I will pass it over to Sharon, but just really appreciate you taking the time to just share your knowledge and experience. And I think we're gonna have some award-winning videos from Parks and Rec departments across the country coming out pretty soon.
I can't wait to watch
it.
it. I'm excited. And so it said, thank you all for all that you all do. I know this year has been really tough for everybody here, but as someone who is staring at a park or the treetops of a park, I'm so grateful for everything that you all do. You all are amazing. And thank you so much for continuing to push what is, in my opinion, the best thing ever, which is Mother Earth and nature. So thank you so much. And yeah, it's been great.
Yes, thank you all for joining us today, and big thank you to Casey and to Court. The slides and the recording from today's presentation will be added to your NRPA online learning dashboard within the next 24 hours or so. And you can join us on NRPA Education Forum, on NRPA Connect to share some of these ideas, more platform information, and continue these discussions from this webinar as you work on your Park and Rec stories. Thank you all, and we will see you next time.